So Laura Ingraham is facing a lot of backlash for defending a well-known white supremacist. Now, in a recent episode of her show, she featured a man named Paul Nehlen in a graphic of prominent voices censored on social media. Now, I want to give you the introduction to that segment, and let's take a look, and we'll break it down.
Far more nefarious at play. It centers around a video of Pelosi on Facebook. Oh, they're trying to bully social media, satirists, people with comedic flair, anyone put in a bad light that is a liberal. What's their goal? Their goal is to use Russian hacking threats and manipulation of social media as part of a larger effort to silence conservative voices ahead of the 2020 election.
All right, so during the middle of that, she threw the video of Pelosi talking about the video that was made of her, where they basically intentionally slowed it down. They doctored it to make her look like she was drunk, right? No, so now she claims that video, oh, no, you don't understand. That was comedic flair. It's trying to make a parody. But wait a minute. That wasn't meant to be funny. I'm pretty sure it wasn't meant to be funny. It was slowed down, as I said, to make her appear like she was drunk or, you know, she couldn't articulate a full sentence, which is hilarious because you don't have to doctor any video of Donald Trump to see that. So, not only that, but it wasn't even featured in a comedy show. You know where I saw it? Is when it was on Fox Business. And the people that were on the panel were talking about it as if it was 100% legitimate. Oh, Pelosi, she's just getting too old, man. Too old to lead the Democrats. I mean, look at her. She just can't even form a coherent sentence anymore. Seriously? It is clearly not meant to be a joke. Again, no commentary, nothing. And so it was a gross smear video. And look, I'm not a fan of Nancy Pelosi. I have a lot of criticisms of Nancy Pelosi. That is not one of them. Her speaking ability is not one of them. I actually do think she fights against progressive values more than she does anything. That's a legitimate issue. But this, no, not legitimate at all. And so, of course, certain social media sites, by the way, and this is really important getting into this, social media sites are not bound by the First Amendment. And they said, hey, we're not comfortable with this smear video, so what we're going to do is we're going to remove it. Now, Facebook said, no, I'm not going to remove it. Well, we think it's fine. I mean, it's gross, but it doesn't break any of our community standards. Okay, look, that's fine. That's up to the individual company. I thought you guys believed in the free market. Now, Twitter and Facebook, they're the free market, right? These are private corporations. They can choose what they want on their platforms. And if they choose to eliminate you or to take down a video, I mean, who are you to fight against it? Free market, free market. So now, already, Ingraham with the BS spin, but it gets worse as she's going to bring in Candace Owens. Now take a look at that.
This is wild. Now they're using the Russian interference as a pretext to be able to silence voices.
Yeah, and it's bizarre. I just want to say first and foremost to Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton, welcome to the internet, where things are doctored. There are memes. If you just do a fair search of my name, your name, Trump's name.
They never do it to us, Candace.
I mean, I can't believe the amount of noise that they're making over. This is the way the internet works. This is the game of humor, of parody, and they've made a big deal out of this. But you're right. They're trying to create this narrative as if somehow this is the reason Hillary lost. She still has not gotten over the fact that Trump just ran a better campaign. And what they're ultimately doing here is they're undermining voters yet again, saying you aren't smart enough.
They're meddling.
Smart enough.
They're meddling in the election.
Exactly, and trying to silence conservatives.
Here we go again. Projection. Okay. So now, but where's the question? The question here is, where's the parody? Where's the comedy? Again, I just pointed out how their Fox News literally tried to pass this off as a real thing until they came out 3 hours later and said, oh, right, literal fake news. Again, Lou Dobbs, you can watch that segment. As for censoring conservative voices, right? Whose voice was being censored when they removed that video? No commentary, no jokes, nothing. Just a doctored, heavily edited video of Nancy Pelosi. I don't know. Maybe I don't get conservative humor because they're not funny. But I don't know. Maybe that is humor to them. Maybe that was funny. But to normal people, regular people, that's not funny. Now, there are a couple of points that Candace makes, and this pains me to say, that maybe it was decent, okay? Maybe she made a decent point about that. And that, of course, goes to the Russia narrative, right? Now, did the Democrats overuse the Russia narrative to try to explain away Hillary Clinton's loss? Yes. I think that's fairly obvious. You don't have to be a conservative to notice that. Progressives have noticed that all along. And so that's a decent enough point. Has social media banned people for ridiculous reasons? Of course. Yes, they have banned people on the right. They've also banned people on the left for ridiculous reasons. But see, people like Candace Owens, the problem is they leave that out. Laura Ingraham leaves that out. You know why? It's because they want to be the victim. They want to talk about victimhood complex. Oh, no, we're the victims. We're the victims. It's the leftists. They're against us. They're trying to shut us down. When there are progressive accounts on social media that get banned and censored all the time. But it doesn't fit into their narrative, sadly. So now, YouTube channels, it's another good example. YouTube channels run by progressives. We have been hurt by the overreaction to extremist content that was found on YouTube. The story is, of course, advertisers, well, they find that, or old media, they go in and they scour YouTube channels with like even 5 subscribers and 40 views. But, if it belongs to an extremist group or it's racist content or anything like that, they freak out. They tell the advertisers, and the advertisers pull out. And then you get demonetization. And look, our channel, ever since the whole Russia thing, right, is now no longer considered a trusted source on YouTube. And it's not just me, of course. I'm relatively small, but there are a ton of progressive channels that are not trusted. The only ones that are trusted now are, of course, mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC. Those channels on YouTube, those are the only ones that are considered trusted news. And so the reason that that's a problem is that you only get, of course, one perspective and one narrative. That's a corporate narrative. But that also limits reach for some of these channels. And so we've been affected quite a bit on the left. And so it's not just conservatives that are facing this kind of backlash. No, it's everybody who is not part of the mainstream establishment. But Ingraham and Owens just want to whine and cry and claim that it's a conspiracy only against conservatives, which of course brings me to Twitter, right? Now, Ingraham then featured a graphic of prominent voices censored on social media. You know who these prominent voices are? Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Laura Loomer, Candace Owens, Michelle Malkin, Dan Scavino, James Woods, and Paul Nehlen. Now, before I get into how horrible Paul Nehlen is, I have to again note that Twitter is a private corporation, unfortunately, and we do not have First Amendment protections on private platforms. Now, if you want to regulate them as a utility, I'm all for that, right? So that people who are posting on social media can get some sort of private social media platforms that we can get First Amendment protections. That would actually be, I think, a good thing for discourse, right? But right now, we don't have that. And nearly every one of those accounts was either threatening or harassing other people or spreading conspiracy theories that caused their followers to threaten and harass people or some sort of other violation, right? Again, you want to look at Alex Jones. Alex Jones was spreading the Sandy Hook conspiracy, which led to families having to move several times because his followers would continue to find them and to harass them and to threaten them. Not to mention what happened with Pizzagate. Pizzagate nearly got people killed. Another conspiracy spread online. And so I kind of understand why YouTube and other social media companies decided to shut that down, because they would continue to spread dangerous conspiracies that would get people hurt and it could get people killed. But let's go to Nehlen, who might actually be the worst of the lot. It turns out that Nehlen is considered so racist and anti-Semitic that he was not only kicked off Twitter, as I mentioned before, but he was even kicked off Gab. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Gab, that's literally the social media company created for the alt-right and by the alt-right. He proved to be too racist and anti-Semitic for those guys. Like, dude, whoa, Paul, you need to ratchet it down a little bit. And I'll give you an example, but first, we'll go to the Republican Party reaction to that. Even the Republican Party of Wisconsin said, yeah, this guy's way too racist, man. He said, quote, Nayland has no place in the Republican Party. It's amazing. Now, his behavior, and this is why people have cut ties with him, includes open support for white supremacists who marched at the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. During that rally, of course, you had Heather Heyer that was literally run down by white supremacists. He also has a locked Telegram channel where he calls himself, and this is creepy, Uncle Paul, and shares memes praising mass murderers as religious heroes. Lovely. And may I mention, it's the 10th anniversary of the death of Dr. George Tiller, who was gunned down at church by an anti-abortion extremist, who was egged on by Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly, Dr. Killer, or Dr. Tiller, baby killer, Dr. Tiller, baby killer, until somebody did something about it. And that's, again, another problem with these, these extremists, these right-wing extremists that go on the air and incite their audience. That's why people lose their social media accounts, because they incite violence on the right. And unfortunately, the Trump administration does not look into this. They don't look into domestic right-wing terror. They don't believe it exists. They believe, oh, it's only on the left. It's only on the left. No. The majority of violence in America was from right-wingers. And that's a fact. All right. Now, Nayland had also argued about the best way to start a race war in America. That's another thing that he talked about. He's so giddy about starting a war between the races. I mean, what a disgusting guy. And yet, Laura Ingraham considers him a prominent voice for conservatism. Now, that, of course, got her in trouble on social media. I have some responses here. Will Sommer said, this is really stunning, even for Fox. Nayland is an open white supremacist who uses racial and anti-Semitic slurs. Ingraham describes him and others in this clip as people who believe in border enforcement, people who believe in national sovereignty. Eric Cunningham said, Paul Nayland was so crazy he got banned from Gab. That's an alt-right social media network and nearly impossible to get banned there. Showing how bad you'd have to be. Jeremy Newberger said, Paul Nayland at Ingraham Angle. And here I thought that Nazi salute of yours was just a mistimed wave and overeager haters on the left. Matthew Chapman said, wait, Laura Ingraham is defending Paul Nayland. Paul Nayland, the literal Nazi who's laughed about the Holocaust and wrote up a list of Jewish journalists? That Paul Nayland? Yep. Andrew Lawrence says Laura Ingraham is defending every single one of these people right now as conservatives that have been silenced. GOP, y'all own every single one of these. And it's true. They do. Now, to show you that, Fox News even came out and defended the segment. In fact, in a statement released today, they said, quote, it is obscene to suggest that Laura Ingraham was defending Paul Nayland's despicable actions. Well, look, she may have not been defending his actions, specifically, but she sure defended this man who she apparently believes is a prominent voice for conservatism. I mean, they created the graphics. They said prominent voices of conservatives banned from Twitter, meaning she finds value in what he says, or maybe enough people seem to find value in what he says, that he represents her and the conservative movement in some way. Now, I got to ask you, does Alex Jones represent the conservative movement? Or Laura Loomer? Or Milo Yiannopoulos? Or Paul Nayland? I'm asking you, does this support you? If so, then maybe you should own it. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.